Okay, so welcome back, everybody. You're watching the Premier League Season 3. My name is Triumph Man, and I'll be casting Quantic on the dire side versus Empire on the Radiant. Now, this is actually Game 3 in a best-of-3 series. This is the deciding match. We were playing this earlier in the week, however, some Steam issues caused the final match to be postponed. So whoever wins here will walk away with a point in the league, and will be that much closer to securing themselves a spot in the Masters as well as some prize money. This is, of course, a $3,000 first place prize, so these teams do want to set up any early lead that they possibly can in this league. Now, of course, this is patch 6.75, so could be anybody's guess as to what turns out here. We've got several heroes that have had a few nerfs, had Lycan, Morphling, Anti-Mage, they're probably the most popular nerfs. And then for a few buffs, we've got stuff like Treant, Alchemist, Doom, Batrider, Nakes, and Jakira. I think those are the heroes to keep your eyes on. And there we go, we see straight away Naga Siren still banned, even though she got a nerf. She lost some base damage, but her main deal is her ultimate and the big setup team fight wombo combo business, and her ultimate, well, made it through 6.75 completely intact and completely unchanged, so not too surprised to see her still on the ban list. Obviously, she's definitely handleable. People can deal with her. She's manageable. We've seen just how true that is from the International too. However, as it is, she's just still a pain in the ass to play. No two ways about it.
5 seconds remaining.
I'm still not sure if that seriously. I swear to God, that surely isn't Purge. Supposedly those names would have changed in game, but they haven't. Painted Gold is the captain. Doc Funkalon, he is there. You can see him in the top spot there. Chen, though, the first ban. Of course, Chen with some funny bugs that have since been hotfixed, so don't expect to see them getting cranked out. Chen, I'm not too surprised to see him banned. He is just a very strong jungler. Now, if memory serves me correctly, we do only have 2 initial bans, so this is going to mean a lot of heroes are going to be slipping through, and this is going to make this first picking phase extremely chaotic, I think. Broodmother also being banned. Now, she had a couple of interesting changes. The Spiderlings now give a larger gold bounty, not by much, but you see how easy it is to wipe out a horde of Spiderlings. It can actually really ramp up someone's gold gain. She did lose a little bit of damage from incapacitating bite, but the big deal is the miss chance went up by a good 15% at level 4. Now, this is, I think, is a pretty big deal because it focuses her role as sort of a pusher and an anti-carry. She's not really in there for the flat-out damage. She's more in there to get in on top of an enemy carry, pin them down, have that slow effect, have, more importantly, the miss effect, and to be extremely painful, just to really cut down the DPS, try and pin down that enemy carry and make sure that they just do not land the hits in. So she's very annoying in that retrospect. Now, the final ban of the first stage, and it is going to be Templar Assassin. Quantic saying, you know what, let's keep that out of Empire's hands. Fair enough. Keep those heroes away, keep those nasty Solomid heroes away from a player like Scandal. Actually, we've seen how hilarious Scandal has been if you were watching the Lost World Tournament. Scandal actually was making some pretty damn big plays in mid as Morph, and a Wisp first pick. There we go. So it looks like we might be seeing some crazy aggressive play. The CIS teams, I know they love their crazy aggressive plays. Combos like Wisp, Chaos Knight, the really aggressive stuff like that. I'm actually hoping to see a really gank-oriented metagame. And of course, that is one of the changes from 6.75. The gold bounty for ganking has gone up. And this swings both ways. This swings both ways. Of course, it does favour a ganking team, but of course, when a team ganks, there is the possibility that a team will defend against the gank and then kill the gankers and basically reap the rewards. So it's one of those things you've got to be careful. I noticed Malk did a bit of a write-up about the change to 6.75, and one of the things he was worried about with the gold bounty change was it would make snowballing a bit more prevalent, and it would become harder for teams to stage a comeback. So we'll see how that change pans out over the next few weeks. Rubik the first pick, though, for Quantic, and they also secured Darkseer. Now, this could be interesting. Now, we saw how Darkseer, a Rubik Darkseer combo was handled yesterday by just basically the opposing team picking themselves a split push lineup. That was Moscow 5, picked themselves a split push lineup and just basically refused to fight in a big 5v5. Now, if Empire are going for a sort of a messy gank-oriented build that's all over the map, just trying to gank multiple lanes at once, just start causing little fights over the place, and then sort of you pick off a couple of heroes here and there, and then just use that opportunity to push. That could work in a similar fashion. And there we go, there's that Chaos Knight. They also select Windrunner, so 3 heroes that got a lot of firepower early on, a lot of versatility in the mid game as well, and I do honestly really enjoy the Chaos Knight build. The Chaos Knight and Wisp combo, the amount of damage with Tether, the amount of damage that a hero can suck up is absolutely ridiculous. I remember Art Style just tanking for basically going 5v1 and just tanking the hell out of the entire enemy team just because Wisp, and there was Chen behind, Wisp healing up both Chaos Knight and Wisp. It was utterly insane. But we'll see how that continues to grow. One last pick though for Quantic before we go into the 3 banning stage next. I will honestly be slightly surprised if we see a tree. I don't mind his changes for pub games, but I still feel he's sort of... The damage block is nice during the laning phase. I think it's definitely better than the global aura that used to have it. But I think it really loses its luster in the mid game as well as going towards the late game. Especially since you can get those 6 damage instances out pretty quickly, and it's only blocking physical damage as well, doesn't appear to block magical damage, and you can knock it off really quickly, and that gets rid of the regeneration part. So, I'm not too sure about it. I'm definitely not really that thrilled. And of course, his overgrowth, while it did drop a bit in cooldown, it lost damage. So, again, it's a bit of give and take for Poor Tree. I still don't think he's up there in the top tier. I think there are definitely, even with the nerfs, I think a hero like Tidehunter is more valuable in my opinion, just because he's more versatile. He's not just such a walking ult. He's got a lot of pressure he can put on in the early game and the mid game. Plenty of roaming and ganking he can do. And then he's got that whole role that he can play as a bouncer, just run up the front of the team, just sort of try and bait an enemy team to run past him to try and get past his opponents. But going back to what's been picked here, Disruptor has been the third and final pick for Quantic. And Disruptor definitely a very, very powerful hero. He's got plenty of AoE control and has had a bit of a buff now that you can't force staff your way through his kinetic walls. So we'll see how things go down for him. And this will actually help mess with heroes like Windrunner, who pretty much force staff was a must-get item for them. Also, continuing on the bans, Enchantress also being banned. Not surprising. They're getting rid of Chen. They don't want to pick in the Enchantress as well. Makes sense to ban off the Enchantress just because, well, she fulfills a similar role to Chen. Meanwhile, though, Empire are getting rid of those really nasty late game high, well, that were really nasty late game high carries, Morphling as well as Anti-Mage, of course, both of them receiving some nerfs, and you might have seen Anti-Mage starting off only with one leg now, thanks to the balancing input of Bruno the Statsman. 4th ban for Quantic, though. I'm looking at Empire's line at the moment. At the moment, I think it depends how they're going to run this. Sometimes we've seen the Chaos Knight and Wisp go dual mid. And of course, if they want to go dual mid, or they could go for a tri-lane up top. They've got a lot of options here. They could go for a jungler as well. It really depends how they want to run this lineup. I think we'll probably... we could see a jungler come out, except for the fact Chen is gone as well as Enchantress. I think they could actually still bust out something like an Enigma, have him jump into the jungle, or even a Nature's Prophet is also a possibility. But I think I'm sort of leaning towards a dual mid here. I really feel like a dual mid here, just because they can shut down a really nasty mid hero if they're expecting Quantic to pick up one. And just because Quantic... then again, they don't really... It depends how they want to run this Rubik. We've seen Rubik take the solo mid as well before, and it's been incredibly effective if he can. But at the moment, Rubik... He hasn't got that many huge ults to steal right now. He hasn't got something like a Black Hole available or a Ravage. Chaos Knight, of course, we've actually seen how nasty Rubik can be with a Chaos Knight Chaos Bolt, but it just doesn't have that huge one. And actually, Nyx Assassin being banned out. This is an interesting choice, and I think this just comes down to the fact that they've got a fair bit of AoE, and the way Spike Carapace... If I'm correct with how Spike Carapace works now, it's basically like a blade mail, except it stuns you as well, so it can basically stun pretty much an entire team. So Nyx against an AoE-centric team can actually be quite frustrating. Furion is going to be banned out by Empire. Banned out by Quantic, so Empire can't get their hands on it. And Empire, with Furion, can actually set up a lot of mobile ganks, as well as the fact that they could have him... If they were planning to run Chaos Knight and Wisp in the safe lane, they could have Furion just show up completely unexpected. They could get a good gank off and then just push with that. Just try and get early towers to set up an early goal lead. Final ban for Empire, though. They are going to get rid of Enigma. Which, fair enough. They've got plenty of AoE over there. You've seen Darkseer. You've got Darkseer, you've got Disruptor. That's a great combo there. Darkseer and Disruptor. Vacuum plus Disruptor's Force Field, as well as his ultimate. That can cause all sorts of carnage, especially if you start throwing in a friendly in there with Iron Shell. That is extremely painful. Leshrac, though, the 4th pick for Empire, so lots and lots of AoE from them. This looks like... I think we're probably going to see Leshrac in the safe lane with Chaos Knight and Wisp. Leshrac and Chaos Knight will do the bulk of the work in the lane. They'll just try and set up with their dual stuns. Wisp will do a lot of pulling, I think, and just try and leech levels off that, with Leshrac also trying to help out, get levels from there as well. And then once they get a few levels, they'll start ganking like crazy. That or Leshrac could be the solo mid. That's also a possibility, but we'll see how Empire want to go down with this. And yes, Swiper, this is the latest patch, 6.75. This is a very scary patch. Lots of uncharted territory.
Reserve time.
4th pick for Team Quantic. And looks like, I think they could, if they're disrupted, depending how they want to run Rubik. If Rubik's going to be a solo hero, then they'll want another support. If Rubik's going to be a support, then obviously they will want a solo hero of their own. Something like a Queen of Pain would actually fit in really well if Quantic are going for a full-on, and I get the feeling that Quantic are going for a full-on AoE nuke combo just because they did get rid of Nyx, and Nyx would really mess that up with his spike carapace. It is quite painful indeed. Evil Jello, Wino Trine. I really, honestly don't rate Trine all that much. I think he's definitely great in the new pub scene, but it's just... his early game, while it's much better, he still suffers in the mid game and still suffers in the late game. And I still think stuff like Tidehunter is still a more viable pick than Trine. But hey, you know, what the hell do I know? This is, as I said, uncharted territory. Maybe someone will pick him up and just go, you know what, actually this hero is fantastic and this is how we make him work. So who knows? We'll see how it goes down. Rasta, though, being picked up, so some good CC there as well. And this is the kind of thing they need some quick disables in the form of a Hex, in the form of even the Shackles as well. There's something they are lacking, though, is a good AoE power stun. AoE power stuns are always really nice to have, and wow, Empire going for a Clink. So it looks like Empire, they're going to go for a messy lineup. They're basically going to try and play this 4v5 for a while. Just buy time for Clinks. Clinks, of course, getting a bit of a buff as well. Strafe. The attack speed from bonus from Strafe being buffed up again. But it looks like they're just going to go for a ganking strategy. They're going to go for basically Wisp, Chaos Knight, just going to try and jump around the map, cause all sorts of havoc. Windrunner, of course, just going to do her own thing as well. And Leshrac as well. He's got the push ability. They can just pick a few heroes up and cause some trouble. And Phantom Lancer! Now, he got a massive, and absolutely massive agility gain bonus. He's gone up from 2.8 agility per level to 4.2. I think it was 4.2. In fact, let me just bring up a page on my side. Yes, he went from 2.8 agility per level to 4.2. So that is that's a pretty much unheard of stat increase. So he definitely hits like a truck, but at the same time, PL was never really that popular before. Well, you know what, we'll see how this turns out. This just comes down to the fact his illusions are a little unreliable. It does take a little bit of time to get going. And against a gank, especially since Wisp and Chaos Knight can be there at the blink of an eye, with and just pop out of nowhere with Dust and just sort of set him up for a gank, I think this could be somewhat dangerous, but we'll see how things turn out for him. I will say this much though, they don't have, besides Leshrac and the power shot, they don't have that much AoE to clear the illusion, so that could be quite painful. That definitely could be quite painful, and with a single and when they're going to be relying on a fair amount of single target DPS in the form of Chaos Knight and Clinks, this could be problematic. They just may not be able to pin down the Phantom Lancer, but it's going to come down to the mid game, I think. The mid game, how well Chaos Knight performs in the mid game with Wisp, and as well as being backed up by the Shrek and the Windrunner, how well they perform in the ganking role is really going to set the pace for this match. And like we said, the gold bounty for ganking has indeed been upped, and this cuts both ways. If you succeed, it definitely helps you out a lot, but of course, when you gank and make messy fights, they can quite possibly backfire on that. When that happens, well, it was already crippling before, so imagine how nasty it's going to get now. But let's call out the players here. Playing for Empire, on the Radiant side, we have Go Black on Leshrac, SS on Windrunner, Nebraski on Chaos Knight, Nebrosco, sorry, on Chaos Knight, Scandal playing Clinks, and Funnick playing Wisp. And for Quantic, we have Paint It Gold on Phantom Lancer, and Purge Gamers apparently is a stand-in for Rubik, Lust playing Shadow Shaman, Infinity playing Disruptor, and Universe on the Darkseer. So we'll see how this goes down indeed. And it is going to be, let's see, it's going to be Phantom Lancer up top, backed up by the Shadow Shaman. Windrunner heading up top, and also we have to Disrupt, so it's going to be a bit of a trial up in the top here. Of course, Phantom Lancer is going to be farming as much as possible. The other two heroes, the supports are going to focus on pulling. Of course, the Dire Jungle, you can quite easily pull the easy camp as well. They've got a lot of pulls available to them there. It's going to be Wisp, Leshrac, and Chaos Knight. And it looks like they're going to go for an early gank. And Darkseer started off with Iron Shell. This does make him vulnerable indeed. There's a stun. Chaos Bolt. Wisp's going to move into range to stun with Tether. Another stun there from this Split Earth. And that's an easy first blood. There was no chance. Absolutely no chance for Darkseer. He stepped out a little bit too early. Didn't really wait to check to see who was in his lane. Although he probably knew what kind of trouble he was in. And he saw those three heroes picked. He probably knew there was going to be some kind of trial. I guess he might have thought it might be an aggressive trial, but in the end, got torn up by it, got brought down, and he doesn't have an escape mechanism here, so he's going to be relying on basically Iron Shells just floating down the lane to get him even a little bit of farm. This will be somewhat annoying for Chaos Knight. Iron Shell is just all-round annoying for melee heroes to farm against, but at the same time, without his Surge, it's going to be very difficult for Darkseid to get anywhere near. Even with Surge, he's quite vulnerable to getting locked down by stuns. That's a triple stun threat. Even with Surge, especially at level 1 Surge, he was so hard to get away. It's just so easy for him to lock him down, especially with Chaos Bolt to set up. They can quite easily set up the tail